You've probably heard this one before. The 50-30-20 rule. Spend 50% of your income on needs, 30% on wants, and save 20%. Simple, right? It's one of the most popular budgeting rules out there, recommended by everyone from financial advisors to your aunt who read a money book once. And look, I get the appeal. 3 numbers, 3 categories. No spreadsheet with 47 subcategories needed, just vibes and basic math. But here's the thing nobody wants to talk about. The math doesn't work for most people anymore, and I mean that literally. Let me show you. The median household income in the United States is about $83,700. That's before taxes, by the way. After federal and state taxes, you're looking at maybe $60,000 to $65,000 in take-home pay, depending on where you live. Let's be generous and call it $5,200 a month. According to the 50-30-20 rule, your needs should be capped at $2,600. That's rent or mortgage, utilities, groceries, transportation, health insurance, minimum debt payments. You know, just the essentials to not die. The problem? Median rent in the US hit nearly $1,500 a month in 2024, and that's just rent, not rent plus utilities. If you have a mortgage, the median monthly payment is over $2,000. So congratulations, housing alone eats up anywhere from 58 to 77% of your supposed needs budget. Before you've turned on the lights, before you've bought groceries, before you've put gas in the car. And let's talk about that groceries line item for a second. The average household spends about $475 a month on food at home. And that's not fancy organic everything from Whole Foods. That's just regular groceries. Inflation hit food prices hard, with prices up nearly 25% since 2020. So now you're at $1,975 just for rent and food, or over $2,475 if you have a mortgage. Add in utilities at $150, car payment at $500, car insurance at $180, health insurance at $300 if you're lucky enough to have decent coverage. We're now at $3,105 minimum. For a person whose needs budget was supposed to be $2,600. That's 119% of your needs budget on actual needs. And we haven't even touched gas, phone, internet, or childcare. If you have kids, tack on another $1,000 to $2,000 a month for daycare in most cities. The math isn't just broken. It's laughable. This is why nearly half of all renters in America are what's called cost burden. They spend more than 30% of their income just on housing, not 30% on all their wants, 30% just on the roof over their heads, and about 21 million households spend more than 50% of their income on housing. These aren't people being irresponsible with money. This is structural. This is what happens when housing costs grow 3 times faster than wages for decades. Here's another fun fact. Households earning $100,000 used to be able to afford 65% of listings on the market back in 2019. Today, just 37%. That's nearly half the options gone in 6 years. And if you're earning $75,000, which is still above median income, you can only afford 21% of homes for sale, down from 49% just 6 years ago. Meanwhile, mortgage rates are sitting around 6.5 to 7%, compared to 2.7% back in 2020. The math got worse while nobody was looking. So when some financial guru on the internet tells you to just follow the 50-30-20 rule, what they're really saying is, have you tried being born 40 years earlier? Have you considered living somewhere where houses don't cost 7 times the median income? Have you thought about just making more money? Groundbreaking advice, really. But let me be fair, let's actually break down what this rule is supposed to do, because the concept isn't completely useless. It just needs a reality check. The 50-30-20 rule was popularized by Elizabeth Warren before she became a senator, in a book called All You're Worth that she wrote with her daughter. The idea was to give people a simple framework for thinking about money, needs versus wants versus the future. And that distinction genuinely matters. The book came out in 2005, which is important context. Housing was expensive then too, but we were in a different universe compared to today's market. Here's why the framework still matters, even if the numbers don't. Most people have no idea where their money actually goes. They make money, they spend money, the account gets low, they wait for the next paycheck. Rinse and repeat. They're living paycheck to paycheck without even knowing why. There's no intentionality, no plan, just financial survival mode, month after month. And the numbers on this are grim. Depending on which survey you trust, somewhere between 53 and 67% of Americans say they're living paycheck to paycheck. Bank of America's strict definition puts it at 24%, measuring households spending 95% or more on necessities. But here's the kicker that blows the broke stereotype out of the water. 44% of households earning over $100,000 a year say they're also stuck in the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. These aren't people who can't afford life. These are people who can't manage life. And there's a difference. Let me say that again because it's important. Almost half of six-figure earners are living paycheck to paycheck. That's not a cost of living problem. That's a money management problem wrapped in lifestyle inflation and lack of awareness. The Bank of America study found that lower-income households saw their wages grow by just 1.4%, while inflation was running at 3%. That's negative real wage growth. You're working the same hours, getting slightly bigger numbers on your paycheck, and somehow affording less. The gap keeps widening. Meanwhile, top earners saw 4% wage growth, so the divide just keeps getting wider. This is where the spirit of 50-30-20 actually has value. Not the specific numbers, but the framework, the idea that you need to consciously separate what you must spend from what you choose to spend from what you're building for later. Most people blend it all together and wonder why they have nothing left over. The average American savings rate right now is about 3.5%. Let me put that in perspective. The 50-30-20 rule says you should save 20%. Americans are actually saving less than 1/5 of that target. We're not even close. Back in the 1970s, the average savings rate was 12.2%. Still not 20, but at least respectable. Today we're at historic lows, barely above the 2.3% we hit in 2005, which was the worst savings year on record. And guess what happened a few years after 2005? The entire economy collapsed. Just saying. The median emergency fund? $600. $600. That's less than 1 month's rent. It's less than 1 car repair. It's less than 1 medical bill. And 21% of Americans have zero emergency savings. Nothing. Absolutely nothing between them and financial disaster. About 37% say they couldn't cover an emergency expense over $400 without going into debt. $400. That's 1 broken appliance, 1 minor fender bender, 1 sick kid. And the pandemic proved this wasn't exaggeration. When stimulus checks hit, people didn't go on spending sprees. They paid bills. They paid down debt. They saved at a rate we hadn't seen in decades, hitting 33.8% in April 2020. Not because they suddenly got disciplined, because for the first time in years, there was actually something left over to save. The desire to save was always there. The margin wasn't. So the rule isn't working. But is the rule the problem? Or are we? Here's where I'm going to push back on the doom and gloom narrative. Yes, the 50-30-20 rule assumes a world that doesn't quite exist anymore. But the principles behind it are more important than ever, and a lot of people use the impossible math as an excuse to not even try. They throw up their hands and say, well, the system is broken. Might as well order another round of takeout. Let me introduce you to a more honest version of this framework. Call it the needs-first reality check. Step 1. Actually calculate your real needs. Not what you think they should be. Not what some internet article says they should be. What they actually are. Housing, utilities, groceries, health insurance, transportation, minimum debt payments, phone bill if you need it for work, childcare if applicable. Add it all up. Be honest. Be brutal. For most Americans, this number is going to come out to 60 or even 70% of take-home pay. And that's okay to acknowledge. You can't budget your way out of a cost of living crisis, but you can budget within one. Knowing your real number is the first step to working with it instead of against it. Step 2. Figure out your actual savings rate, not what you're automatically contributing to a 401k you forgot about. Everything. Emergency fund contributions, retirement, investments, debt above minimums, add it up, and calculate the percentage. Is it 3%? Is it 8%? Is it 0%? Is it negative because you're going deeper into debt each month? Whatever it is, write it down. Because you can't fix what you don't measure, and most people have never measured this. They have no idea if they're moving forward or backward financially. Step 3. Whatever's left is your wants. And here's the thing. If your needs take 65% and you're only saving 5%, then your wants budget is 30%. If your needs take 70% and you're saving nothing, then every dollar going to wants is a dollar that could be building your financial safety net. That's not judgment, that's just math. This is where people get uncomfortable, because the wants category includes a lot of stuff we've convinced ourselves are needs. Streaming subscriptions. You know, the 6 different ones totaling $75 a month because you need Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus and HBO and Peacock and whatever else launched this week. The gym membership you haven't used since January but keep paying because maybe next month you'll go. Eating out 3 times a week at an average of $50 a pop. That's $600 a month on food you could make at home for a third of the price. The upgraded phone when the old one worked fine. That extra $200 a month in car payment for the nicer trim level that nobody outside of you will ever notice or care about. I'm not saying you can't have nice things. I'm saying you should know exactly what those nice things are costing you. Every dollar has a job, and right now a lot of people have dollars standing around the break room doing nothing, or worse, actively working against them by racking up interest on credit cards. Let me give you some alternative frameworks that might actually match your reality. If you're drowning in high-interest debt, forget 50-30-20. You need the 70-20-10 approach. 70% to needs and aggressive debt payments, 20% to essential wants you need to stay sane, and 10% to savings. Yes, you're saving less, but you're also not paying 24% interest to a credit card company that already has enough money. The math on high-interest debt is brutal. A $5,000 balance at 24% interest, paying minimums, takes over 20 years to pay off and costs you more than $8,000 in interest. Killing that debt is an investment. If you live in a high cost of living area, try 60-20-20, 60% on needs, because that's just reality when rent is $2,500 and you can't exactly move to Iowa because your job, your family, and your life are here. 20% on wants, because you have to live a little or you'll burn out. And 20% on savings, because future you is counting on it. If you're young with low expenses and roommates, flip it. 40-30-30. Live cheap, enjoy your 20s, but stack cash while you can. Because the lifestyle creep will come for you eventually, and it helps to have a foundation before it arrives. The habits you build in your 20s compound just like the money does. The point isn't the numbers. The point is the intention. You need to know what you're doing with your money on purpose. Most people are on financial autopilot, and autopilot is flying them into a mountain. Now, I want to address something that gets glossed over in these budget conversations. The math doesn't work for everyone, and pretending it does is dishonest. If you make $30,000 a year, no budget framework is going to magically create wealth. You can optimize all you want, but the margin just isn't there. The real answer for a lot of people isn't better budgeting, it's higher income, skills, side income, career moves, certifications, asking for raises, switching jobs. The budget stuff matters, but it matters more when there's actually something to budget. Similarly, if you're making $200,000 a year and you're broke, no income increase is going to save you. You have a spending problem, and the only fix is actually looking at where the money goes. I've seen people making $500,000 a year who are still stressed about money because their lifestyle expanded to match every raise they ever got. More income isn't the solution for everyone. Sometimes it's just a bigger hole to throw money into. Most people fall somewhere in the middle. They make enough that good financial management could genuinely change their lives, but not so much that they can ignore the details. This is where frameworks like 50-30-20 can help, even if the specific percentages don't fit. Here's what I'd actually recommend. Forget the perfect percentages and focus on the right order of operations. First, survive. Cover your actual needs. If that takes 60% of your income, so be it. This isn't failure, it's reality. Don't beat yourself up for not hitting some arbitrary percentage that was calculated in a different economic era. Second, don't go backwards. At minimum, save enough to handle emergencies without credit cards. 3 months of expenses is a good start. 6 is better. Before you invest, before you do anything else, build this cushion. Because without it, every emergency becomes a debt spiral. Third, capture free money. If your employer matches 401k contributions, take it, all of it. A 50% match is a 50% instant return. You will never beat that in the market. Not taking the full match is literally turning down free money. Fourth, kill expensive debt. Credit cards, personal loans, anything over 8 or 9% interest. The guaranteed return of paying off a 22% credit card beats any investment you'll ever make. The stock market averages around 10% historically. Paying off 22% debt is like getting a guaranteed 22% return. Fifth, and only fifth, now we're talking about building wealth. Index funds, real estate, additional retirement contributions. The stuff that actually makes you rich over time, but you have to earn the right to get here by handling the first 4 steps. The 50-30-20 rule skips all this nuance. It assumes a clean financial slate that most Americans don't have. It assumes housing costs that don't exist in most major cities. It assumes a savings rate that Americans have never consistently achieved in the modern era. But the core idea still matters. You need to know what you need. You need to know what you want, and you need to know what you're building. The percentages are just guidelines. Your situation determines the real numbers. So here's my challenge to you. This week, look at last month's spending, all of it. Categorize it honestly. Needs, wants, savings. Don't lie to yourself about which category that DoorDash habit falls into. Don't pretend that subscription you forgot about is a need. Then calculate your actual ratios. Where are you right now? Not where you wish you were. Where you actually are. That number might be uncomfortable. Good. Discomfort is the first step toward change. And then ask yourself, is this the person I want to be in 10 years? Because the person you are with money today is creating the person you'll be with money tomorrow. Every paycheck is a decision. Every purchase is a vote for what kind of life you're building. The 50-30-20 rule isn't magic. It's math with good intentions. And in a world where costs have outpaced incomes and housing has become a luxury, the math needs adjusting. But the intentions, the idea that you should consciously design your financial life instead of letting it happen to you, that's as true as it's ever been. Your budget is a plan for your money. The 50-30-20 rule is one plan, but the best plan is the one that actually fits your life, addresses your real challenges, and builds toward what you actually want. So take the framework, adjust it, make it yours, and for the love of compound interest, start actually measuring where your money goes. Because right now, for most Americans, the answer is everywhere but where it should. That's the uncomfortable truth about budgeting in 2026. The rules were written for a different economy, but the principles are timeless. Know your needs, limit your wants, build your future. The percentages are negotiable, the discipline is not.